Good morning. Today is Wednesday, the 6th of Adar Sheni, the second Adar. And today, it's a little longer class. We're finishing the chapter 35 that we began 2 days ago. And in this chapter, the Alter Rebbe begins an explanation of the importance of the mitzvahs of action, that in a way are even greater than the greatest level of spiritual experiences of even the tzaddikim. The mitzvahs of action is in a much greater level. And we started yesterday with a statement from the Zohar, from the Yenuka, the child that the Zohar quotes. And it says, what does it mean? It says a person shouldn't walk without a head covering for 4 cubits. Why? Because there is the light of Hashem, the Shekhinah shines upon the person. It says, the wise man, his eyes is in his head, and he's asking, what does it mean? Where else would the eyes be? And he explains, because the eyes is in the head, meaning the thing, what is on top of what is on your head, which is the Shekhinah, that Hashem's presence. And he gives the example. He says, just like a candle, the flame needs, you have the wick, you have the flame, but you need the oil. In order for the flame to burn, to keep going, you need the oil. What is the wick is the body, the flame is the godly light. And in order to keep burning, to keep there, the godly light, you need the oil. What is the oil? The good deeds. So the Alter Rebbe now is going to ask the question, as we concluded yesterday, that we are really missing one component over here. We're saying you have Hashem's light, and the light needs to be on the body, and for that you need the oil. But we have also a neshama. We totally disregarded the neshama, the soul. Why isn't the soul enough to be the thing that keeps the light going? The soul is spiritual. The soul is connected with Hashem. So he's going to explain, just like in the example of the metaphor with the wick. What happens to the wick? Why can't the wick be used as the burning fuel? Because the wick is not completely consumed into the fire. It's not completely nullified into the fire. The oil, on the other hand, the oil is completely becomes one with the fire. The fire consumes completely the oil, and that is why the oil is used as the fuel to keep the light going. And this example, the Alter Rebbe is going to use here to explain that the spiritual experience of a person, the love of Hashem, the fear of Hashem, as great as it is still not a complete nullification to Hashem. Why not? If a tzaddik, a righteous person, feels a feeling of an amazing experience of connecting to God, what else do you expect? Isn't this the greatest level of nullification to Hashem? Says the Alter Rebbe is going to explain that at the end of the day, this tzaddik, even though he's so much connected to Hashem, but he feels his own self-existence and that he wants to be one with Hashem. So there is no complete nullification, like there's nothing else but Hashem. It is he who is connecting to God. And obviously, how much a person can connect to God doesn't matter how great of a level that person is still limited to his own capacity, how much he can comprehend. That is why this cannot be used as pure oil to the fire, because it's not completely consumed into the fire, into the godly fire. But when we're talking about the physical, actual mitzvah, what is a mitzvah? A mitzvah is God's will, not your will, not your desire to connect to God. It is you are fulfilling God's will. There is nothing there that interferes between God's will and your action. So God's will now sets in your action. This is why the action of a mitzvah, when you actually do a mitzvah, that action serves as the fuel for the oil, as the oil for the godly light, because there's no ulterior motive there. When you do the mitzvah, the act itself is purely God's will. So let's see it inside. Says the Alter Rebbe, Vehine, biur mashal zeh, sheimshil oyer hashchina la'oyer hanor. The meaning of this analogy, comparing the light of the Shechina to the light of a candle, is going to Alter Rebbe to say this is clear to every intelligent person. That just as it is true of the candle's flame, that it does not shed light, nor is it retained by the wick without oil. וכך אין השכינה שירה על גוף האדם, שנמשל לפסילה, אלו על ידי מעשים טובים דווקא. Similarly, the Shechina doesn't rest upon man's body, which is compared to a wick, except through man's performing good deeds. And this is what Alter Rebbe says, it's not enough that you have a neshama. The neshama itself is not enough to serve as the fuel. It is evident from the Zohar, however, that one's soul, although a part of God above, is insufficient to serve as oil for the wick. But the reason for this, the Alter Rebbe now concludes that this is clear and understandable to every intelligent person. And Alter Rebbe is going to explain now what's wrong with the neshama, what's wrong with the excitement of the neshama, the spiritual experience that a neshama has connecting to Hashem at such a great level. Says the Alter Rebbe, because the soul of a man, even if he is a perfect tzaddik, who serves God with fear and with a pleasurable love, meaning his love consists of delighting in the experience of godliness, a most lofty form of love. This we explained elsewhere in Tanya, the different levels of love. We're talking about the greatest level of love that a tzaddik may have, the love to Hashem. Nevertheless, even if it's in the greatest level, Afal pikein, nevertheless, eino betela b'mitzius legamre, libotel velikolel be'er Hashem mamash, liyos la'achodim u'miyuchodim be'ichud gamo. It is nevertheless not utterly nullified out of existence, so that it might be dissolved into and absorbed within God's light, to be merged with it in a perfect unity. In other words, the greatest love that a person has, you still are not completely nullified in God's unity. It is rather a separate entity which fears God and loves Him. So even the tzaddik is still, it's him, the tzaddik, who is nullified to Hashem. But this is not the case when we're talking about the actual mitzvah. Now, when a Jew does the mitzvah that he does is one with Hashem's ultimate and internal will. That's what Alter Rebbe says, not so with mitzvahs and good deeds, which are God's will. Each commandment representing God's desire that a particular act be performed. This is God's desire, whatever we do. We're going to give Shalach Manos and Purim. It's God's desire. Give charity to the poor. It's God's desire. Listening to the Megillah. Every mitzvah that you do, this is, you're fulfilling God's desire. Having the meal on Purim in Baku Palace. That's God's desire, to sit and have a meal. Although those are rabbinical mitzvahs, but we know that the rabbinical mitzvahs are also God's desire. Now God's will is the source of life for all the world and the creatures. The difference between the divine will expressed in mitzvahs and that same will as expressed in creation lies in the fact in the latter descending to them by means of many contractions, tzimtzumim, and by concealment of the countenance. And through a descent from level to level, all these steps were necessary so that it would be possible for the worlds and creatures to come into being and to be created ex nihilo, something from nothing, as separate entities without becoming nullified out of existence, as mentioned above. The mitzvahs, on the other hand, are the internal aspect of the divine will. There, the countenance is not hidden at all. What is the Alter Rebbe saying here? We once gave the example about there is the inner will and there is the external will of a person. When you go to work, you get up in the morning, and you get dressed, and you go out in the cold or in the heat, and you take the bus, and you go to your office, and you sit down and you do your work. What is, when you get up in the morning and you go out, do you really want to go out? You're doing it obviously because you want to do it. But what is your inner will? Is the inner will to go out and in the cold and go to your office? Is your real will to sit in the office for 8 hours, whatever you're sitting there? Is that your real will? What is the real inner will of what you're doing? Is the inner will is you want the check at the end of the week. Not only you want the check at the end of the week, you want what you going to do with the check. It gives you, you'll be able to live a good life. So the will of Hashem, everything that in the world, that exists in the world, only exists because of the will of Hashem. Animals, birds, rocks, trees, everything exists because this Hashem wants it to exist. Otherwise, if Hashem doesn't want them to exist, they would disappear. They would not be existing at all. But is this the inner will of Hashem? So the Alter Rebbe says here, it comes, this light of Hashem, the energy of Hashem, that comes down to the point that it creates all of these creatures, comes down there's two things over here. Number one, it is concentrated. It is condensed. The energy should not be a powerful energy, otherwise it wouldn't exist. And there is also hester panim, concealment of the inner part of Hashem, the inner will of Hashem. What does it mean? That the inner will of Hashem is not just the plain existence of those creatures. The inner will of Hashem is what is going to be. What purpose will they serve? What is the purpose? Is the fulfillment of God's will in this world. The mitzvah, on the other hand, yes, it is contracted. It is a mitzvah of tefillin, for example. It is the energy of Hashem was limited to the point that it becomes a physical parchment. But there is no concealment of the face. There is no concealment of God's inner will, because that is the ultimate God's will. And therefore, anything that is used for a mitzvah becomes God's revelation in this world. Continues the Alter Rebbe, the mitzvahs, on the other hand, are the internal aspect of the divine will. There, the countenance is not hidden at all. Because the mitzvahs represents God's true inner will. And because in them, there is no concealment of this will, unlike the case of in creation, as we just explained. Therefore, the godly life force within them is by no means a separate entity. But it is united with and contained within God's will, and the mitzvahs, are truly joined in perfect unity with God's will. Continues the Alter Rebbe, now the resting of the Shechina means, meaning when we single out a specific object from a world filled with the Shechina, by saying that the divine presence rests upon the object, its uniqueness lies in, what is the uniqueness of God's, the divine Shechina, divine light lies. It says, the revelation of godliness and the Ein Sof light in that particular object. This means to say that this object is comprised with God's light and is nullified out of existence towards Him, meaning that it is no separate identity. For only then can the one God rest upon it, upon that object, and reveal Himself in it. But anything not completely nullified out of existence toward the godly light cannot have God's light rest and reveal itself within it. If you're not completely nullified in Hashem, then Hashem is not completely revealed in you. And therefore, says the Alter Rebbe, ve'af tzadik gamu shemizdabek boy be'avo rabo arei leis machshavat fis beklal be'emes. Even a perfect tzaddik, the most righteous person, who cleaves to Him with abundant love, one of the greatest levels of love. It says, nevertheless, no thought can truly grasp him at all. As much as a tzaddik grasps Hashem, but it's not completely grasping. It's only to the level, the point that he is able to do it. Why? For the true implication of the phrase, God is the true Lord, is his unity and oneness, that he alone exists and there is absolutely nothing besides him. So when he's saying Hashem is everything, that is nothing else, then where's the tzaddik? You cannot have a tzaddik as a separate entity and at the same time to be one with Hashem. That's what Alter Rebbe says, V'im kein zeh oyev, shu yesh v'lo yefes leis machshava delay tfisa beklal. If so, this person, meaning the above-mentioned tzaddik, who loves God and who is a separate being in his own self-perception, as is evident from the very fact that he loves God. There's I love God, I love you. It's not there's a I, there's a you, and I love you. I love Hashem. So he says, rather than a non-entity, no thought of his can grasp him at all. So even the tzaddik cannot grasp God and thereby become one with him through the faculty of his own soul. And therefore, it says God's light does not abide or manifest itself in him except through the fulfillment of the mitzvahs. Why? Because this constant mitzvahs constitutes his actual will and wisdom without any concealment of the countenance. It is the ultimate will of Hashem. And here, in the footnote, the Alter Rebbe says, this accords with what I heard from my teacher, the teacher of the Alter Rebbe, which was the Maggid of Mezrich, peace upon him, on the meaning of and the reason behind the statement of Eitz Chaim, that Ein Sof light does not unite itself even with the world of Atzilus, except by first vesting itself in the attribute of Chachma, the wisdom. We'll soon explain what it means. This is because the Ein Sof is the true one, which means that he alone exists and there is not beside him. And this is, in fact, is the level of Chachma. What is the Alter Rebbe saying here? Saying we know, but there's the different levels, the different worlds, the spiritual worlds. The world of Atzilus is the world where godliness is revealed. So Eitz Chaim says that even in the world of Atzilus, which nothing else exists, besides God's revelation, the godly revelation cannot be revealed unless it is first revealed in the level of Chachma, the level of wisdom. So he explains, because what is wisdom? Explained in previous lessons, wisdom is when a person is thinking about something, thinking about a certain problem, and then all of a sudden he has a flash. He has an idea came to him. So the idea comes from above, from outside him. It's not that he created the idea, it came to him. That's called wisdom, that's called Chachma. Chachma makes out the word koachma, the power of what? That means there's nothing there. It's not you. You only can receive something from above when you're completely nullified. So the point of Chachma in the world of Atzilus is the part of Atzilus which is totally, completely nullified to Hashem. So that's basically the same idea, is that in order for Hashem God's light to be revealed is when there is a total nullification to Hashem. And the total nullification to Hashem can only be in the mitzvahs, the actual mitzvahs, when you nullify yourself and you're doing what Hashem wants. So now, the Alter Rebbe is going to explain it further. What about studying Torah? The Zohar, from the Yenuka and the child and the Zohar, the statement of the Yenuka and the Zohar was that what is the light, what is the oil to keep the light on, keep the light burning, is the good deeds, uvdan tavan, good deeds. Why doesn't he mention study of Torah? Isn't study of Torah also something, when you study God's Torah, you become one with Hashem? So the Alter Rebbe is going to explain that the study of the Torah, true, it unites the person with Hashem, but what part of the person is united with Hashem? It is your thoughts, it is your speech. It doesn't penetrate into every single part of your body. Unlike the good deeds, which you're doing it with action, with the actual mitzvahs of action, brings the Shekhinah even to the lowest part of your person. That's what Alter Rebbe says, Ve'inek she'odam oisek b'Torah, azay nishmasoi, she'nafsho yelikis, im shnei levushei apnim levadam, she'im koyach hadibur u'machshava. When a person studies Torah, using his powers of thought and speech, his neshama, his divine soul, with its two inner garments only, meaning the faculties of speech and thought, they are absorbed within God's light, the Ein Sof, blessed be He, and are merged with it in perfect unity. Only the two inner garments. As we explained many times, we have the three garments. We have the thought, speech, and action. So the inner garments, the thought and the speech, are called the inner garments because they are more connected with the person, not so much connected with the outside. but the action is not so much connected when you study the Torah. This constitutes resting of the Shekhinah on his divine soul. As our sages have said, that when even one person applies himself diligently to Torah study, the Shekhinah is with him. However, in order to draw the light and radiance of the Shekhinah upon his body and animal soul as well, meaning upon the vitalizing soul, actually clothed in the body and providing for it a corporal life force. In order to do this, in order to bring the Shekhinah down even there, one must fulfill the practical mitzvahs, the commandments involving the faculty of action, which are performed with the body itself. Because then, in this way, the actual power of the body engaged in this act, meaning when one dons tefillin, for example, it is the physical strength in his arm that impels the motions that constitute the fulfillment of the mitzvah. And therefore, this bodily power is absorbed in the divine light and merges with it in perfect unity. This power of the body constitutes the third garment of the divine soul, the garment of action. And then what else happens? When the faculty of action is absorbed within the divine will, then in addition, the power of the vitalizing soul, actually clothed with it within the body, The power of that soul derived from the klipas noiga, which we explained earlier in earlier lessons. The shell, which is a neutral shell, it's not completely impure, but it can become holy. And that is transformed from evil to good and is actually absorbed into the holiness, exactly like the divine soul. At that moment, the entire animal soul, when you do the mitzvah, the entire animal soul becomes part of it. For it is the power of the animal soul that implements and performs the act that constitutes the mitzvah. Because without this, without the power of the animal soul, the divine soul would not affect the body at all. Why? Since it is spiritual and the body physical and corporal. So that the godly soul itself wouldn't be able to do the mitzvah. The intermediary between them, between the godly soul and the body, is the vitalizing animal soul clothed in the man's blood, which is in his heart and throughout his body. And although the substance and essence of the animal soul in his heart, meaning its evil midas, evil emotional characters, have still not been absorbed into holiness. So the animal, so yes, when you're doing a mitzvah, the actions of the mitzvah becomes part, but the actual animal soul didn't change. You still have this evil desires in the person. Nevertheless, the Alter Rebbe is going to explain that during the mitzvah, that animal soul is subjugated to the kedusha, to the holiness. Just like sometimes, many times, we go out and you ask a person to put on tefillin. Happens to me many times. And the person, no, leave me alone. He's not interested. But with a little, little soft pushing, sometimes the person says, okay, all right, go ahead. And he does and he puts on the tefillin. So what happens at that moment when he puts on the tefillin? Did he completely transform? Did he completely change? No. But when he does the tefillin, his entire person is at that moment subjugated to the kedusha, subjugated to the holiness. So even though after he finishes the tefillin, he can change back, but that doesn't take away from the fact that at that moment he was completely became one with Hashem's will, and the animal soul at that moment is like in exile, is not acting. And many times after this, I get the reaction of the people says, what, thank you very much. They feel that they did something, even though they were not interested at all. It says, the Alter Rebbe mikomokai me'achar b'iskafin lekedusha, u'val kochom oinim amein, u'maskimim u'misratzim l'asiyas hamitzvah. Yet because they, the evil midas, are subjugated to holiness, and against their will, they say amen, agreeing and acceding to the performance of the mitzvah. They agree. And why is that? Through the strengthening of the divine soul in the brain, which masters the heart. And the evil midas are at such time when one exercises the natural mastery of brain over the heart by contemplating God's greatness, and when he does the mitzvah. And so they are in a state of exile and sleep, meaning as mentioned above in chapter 12, that they are completely in a state of exile. Therefore, this does not prevent the Shechina from resting on one's body at this time. This resting of the Shechina means that the power of the animal soul clothed in the act that constitute the mitzvah, so the power in the hand done in tefillin, for example, is actually absorbed into the divine light and merges with it in perfect unity. And now what happens? Thereby, one draws down a ray of the light wherein the particular power has been absorbed. It draws, this light now becomes upon the totality of the animal soul throughout the body and upon the entire body as well. So this ray of divine light illuminates one's animal soul and his body in a manner of encompassing from above, surrounding them from head to foot. Just like in the example where it brings the example of the candle. So what brings the light? You bring the oil, makes the light. You have the candle, you have the wick, you have the oil. So the oil is consumed in the fire. But then once the oil is consumed in the fire, the ray of the light, the shine of the light spreads in the entire room. Every part of the room becomes illuminated. And the same thing also is the mitzvah that you do, which connects you, that brings the light upon. But then the light affects every part of the person. Every part of the person becomes affected with this light. This explains the expression appearing in the passage from the Zohar that the Shechina rests upon his head, specifically upon, meaning encompassing him from above. That's what it says, that the Shechina is upon your head. Now you need to make sure that this light stays, and that is, you need the mitzvah for that. And in a similar vein, the expression upon every assembly of 10 Jews, the divine presence rests, which means that the light of the divine presence does not permeate them, but illuminates them from above. That is why when 10 Jews are in a room, even they don't do anything, it is the divine presence above. And now the Alter Rebbe says, when we're saying that with the mitzvah, you bring the Shechina here, every time you do the mitzvah, you draw the Shechina. When there are 10 people, they draw the Shechina, draw the divine presence. The Alter Rebbe says, so wait a second, so is the light of the Shechina divided? Is there a change in the Shechina? So that's what Alter Rebbe is going to explain. It's just like the light of the sun. The sun shines, and it can shine in many different rooms, but it doesn't have a change, doesn't affect the sun at all. The sun is the same, is one and the same. This is Alter Rebbe Minekol, none of these various forms in which the light of the Shechina is manifested, meaning the ways in which the Ein Sof light is revealed, it cannot be construed as a change in himself or as a plurality. As the Talmud says in the tractate Sanhedrin, where it's recorded that a certain heretic said to Rabban Gamliel, and he said to him, "Amrisu kol beyasara shchinte sharie, kama shchina islechu." You say that the Shechina rests on every assembly of 10. So he asked him, how many Shechinas have you? How many gods do you have? How many shchinas? And Rabbi Gamliel replied with the analogy of the sun's light, which enters through many windows, etc. That the fact that there's many windows and the sun shines in each window separately, it doesn't mean that there is more than one sun. And this the Alter Rebbe concludes, the maskil yavin, and the intelligent will understand. And the Hasidim used to add that the Dva'oived yargish, which means the person who serves Hashem, there is understanding everything intellectually, and there is also working on yourself, taking things innerly. So when you take those things inwardly, inside you, not only will you understand, but also you will feel. So this is the end of chapter 35. And here the Alter Rebbe begins the explanation of the meaning of the importance of mitzvahs of action. The Alter Rebbe is going to continue the explanations in the next few chapters. Thank you so much for joining. Mitzvah Hashem, join us again tomorrow, 9:10 a.m. Don't forget to subscribe, to share it. All the best.